Kakadosh, Boker Or, Bekiim Halacha 5, day 62, page 161. We're still in the preface to do with the concept of Tefilin of Rabbeinu Tam. According to the Kabbalah, the Ben Ish Chai commented that the Poskim originally thought that the machloka between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam is similar to all halach debates, where one opinion is actually correct and the other one is incorrect. This was the case until Eliyahu Navi came and revealed to the Oziel HaKadosh that both Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam's opinion are correct, and that we must wear both types of tefillin. In fact, he added that all Jews, since the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, always wore two pairs of tefillin, up until the era of the Geonim. And that's why the Gemara comments and says that there's room on a person's head to place two tefillin, right? Two tefillin. Additionally, the Zohar HaKadosh states that although there are people who wear two sets of tefillin thinking that only one of them is correct, they are unaware that both of them are actually correct. Therefore, the Ben Ish Chai concluded, anyone who has fear of God, right, has to have two sets of tefillin made for himself. One according to Rashi's opinion, one according to Rabbeinu Tam's opinion. Holding the two together, he should loop them onto his arm and tighten them both, one above the other. He needs to put on both sets at the same time, unlike those who first put on Rashi and then afterwards, right, a set of Rabbeinu Tam by itself. Okay, so you hear that according to Ben Ish Chai, together. Rabbeinu Yaakov of Troyes, who's counted among the authors of Tosafot, right, authored the responsa from heaven, which is basically Shut Min HaShamayim, right, the responsa from heaven. A collection of questions he asked to the Shemaim before going to sleep, and the answers came in his dreams. Yeah, Pamal, no, you want to do that? You come, you ask questions right before you go to sleep, you get a dream, you have your answer, and you continue. One of the questions that he asked was whether to follow the opinion of Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam regarding Tefillin. The reply he received was, both opinions are the words of living God. Right? Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim. Just as the subject of debate on earth, so too the subject of debate in heaven. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that we must position Avayot in the middle, which is like Rabbeinu Tam, while all the sages in the heaven claim that four parts must be positioned like Rashi. This appears to support the opinion that the Kabbalists, that both opinions are correct, but the proof can easily be refuted. The Matzat Shimurim concurred with the Ben Ish Chai that the Halakha demands that a person put on both sets of tefillin. Moreover, it states that if anyone does not wear both sets at the same time, it's as if that he never fulfilled the mitzvah. If you don't put it on at the same time, it's as if that you never fulfilled the mitzvah. Both opinions are correct, and everyone must put on both sets. Rav Yaakov Emdin, the Ya'avetz, Rav Yaakov Emdin disagreed sharply. He disagreed sharply with the opinion that a person who doesn't wear both sets at the same time is considered someone that never wore the tefillin. This is a terrible thing to say about all great Torah scholars of the previous generations. Furthermore, the Zohar HaKadosh does not say that a person must wear two sets of tefillin. He contended, countering the Ben Ish Chai's interpretation. Basically, he says that it's incorrect, the Ben Ish Chai's interpretation of the Zohar. That Rav Chida, though, expresses amazement at the audacity of the Moruk Tzia to flatly disagree in the opinion that Oziel HaKadosh and other Kabbalists who taught that both sets of tefillin are correct and both are necessary. He complained not only did the Moruk Tzia insist that the necessity of wearing both sets is only because we are unsure of which one is correct, he even asserted in the prayer book that he published that this is the Halacha. How is it possible to suggest that the Zohar HaKadosh teaching something other than the ruling that Oziel HaKadosh, when all that Oziel HaKadosh is teaching, right, are based upon the Zohar HaKadosh? The ruling of the Moruk Tzia is null and void. But telum vutal, powerful words. And undoubtedly he had a mistaken version of the Zohar HaKadosh. Says he had a, yeah? You're checking it out. Yeah. The Rishon LeZion. That's something different, because when you have a bar mitzvah, you're still not on the level. You're not on the level to put on Rabbeinu Tam yet. Rabbeinu Tam is a much higher level. So by bar mitzvah, you should wait a little bit, even though you should know that my rabbi put his son Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam since he was bar mitzvah. But you need a certain level of kedusha. It's not just stam. You understand? It's a level of kedusha. That's why usually they wait until they're married. Usually they wait until they're married. Why? Because usually once a person gets married, he's settled down. He's not fooling around. He's not doing different things. So therefore, they have a certain level of kedusha. That's why he said a God-fearing person. Again, usually it's with the... We're going to see. 1 second. That Rishon LeZion come and he demonstrated that the Gaon of Vilna verified the version of Zohar HaKadosh cited by the Moruk Tzia to be correct. And he explained that Rav Eliyahu ruled consistently with the thesis that it's not necessary to accept all the Oziel's rulings. Right? That means basically the Gaon of Vilna said you don't have to accept Oziel for everything. According to Rav Eliyahu, this is again the Gaon of Vilna. The Halakha is that Rashi's opinion is definitely correct. Okay, and the Rav Chida, the author of the Ben Ish Chai, in contrast, followed the assertion that Rav Zalman of Liadi in a letter to the effect that the source of the Oziel teaching is Eliyahu Navi. And this is the assumption of the majority of the Sephardic Torah scholars. But Rishon LeZion took issue with the Ben Ish Chai's assumption that Jews have been wearing 2 sets of tefillin over 1,000 years. From the time of Moshe Rabbeinu until the era of the Gonim, he demonstrated that Tikkunei Zohar contradicting this, stating that our sages were debating whether to position the passages like Rashi or like Rabbeinu Tam already in the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Furthermore, the poskim proved that the Mechilta ruled according to Rashi's opinion, while the Yerushalmi was going like Rabbeinu Tam, as explained earlier in the preface. Additionally, the plain reading of the Talmud in a number of places is with the assumption that people wore 2 sets of tefillin. Is not consistent, with an assumption. What's more, the picture of our history as Ben Ish Chai presents it is improbable. If it was standard since Moshe Rabbeinu to wear 2 tefillin, how did obviously it was forgotten during the time of the Geonim? How could it be that all the Torah leaders and generations suddenly decided that only one of them is enough? Assuming that Jews always wore 1 set of tefillin, we could understand how the debate were the position. How did it come about? After all, the schools are enclosed in the batim, and people never see it. So over the years, due to constant persecution, exiles, and harsh restrictions placed upon the Jews, some scribes became confused about how to insert them, and therefore, again, you have the questions with the Geonim. But it will be true that both opinions are correct and both necessary. It is very hard to imagine how and why they became forgotten. So he says, okay, fine. So therefore, again, you've got a machloka between the Ben Ish Chai and the Rav Chida on one side, and then you have the Rav Ovadia Yosef on the other side with the Moruxia. So what about both together or one at a time? The Rishon LeZion ruled that if someone is tall enough and can afford to purchase 2 sets of tefillin that will fit together in proper space in his head, and arm, it's better to wear, it's certainly meritorious to wear both sets of tefillin at one time. Following the instructions of the Rosh, the Tur, and the Shulchan Aruch, according to the Kabbalah, this practice is imperative. You have to do this, right? Our standard tefillin, however, are much too large to allow for this practice. Meaning, if you get regular sized tefillin, you can't do that. So it is impossible to fit 2 sets of the proper place at the same time. Therefore, people who have standard size of tefillin must wear Rashi, and then afterwards Rabbeinu Tam. The Shulchan Aruch also cites this practice and prescribes it for people who cannot position 2 sets of tefillin properly at the same time. If someone would attempt to wear 2 sets at the same time, at least one set will be incorrect. So tefillin shliya must be positioned entirely on the lower half of the upper arm, since those are where the Rashi, right, on the arm above the tefillin Rabbeinu Tam. It's also certain to make sure that Rashi is in the proper place. Not only does that mean that he has failed to fulfill the mitzvah, he's guilty of reciting Hechal v'Tala. Meaning, if he puts the Rabbeinu Tam, the Rashi, because remember, the Rashi one is on the higher one over here. So if he puts it too high, so then what happens is all of a sudden now he's not Yitzhak Chuvah. So not only he's not Yitzhak Chuvah, and that's the main halacha, but also it's Hechal v'Tala. It would be wonderful to follow the instructions of the Kabbalists. We must keep in mind, however, that their insistence that one wear both at the same time is based upon the assumption that you must wear both at the same time to fulfill the mitzvah, as explained above. Right? The poskim don't always hold of that. In conclusion, whoever wishes to fulfill the mitzvah, the safest and most acceptable manner should wear the tefillin one at a time, changing the tefillin to Rabbeinu Tam to Shachrit and reciting Shema a second time. This is a formula recommended by the Shulchan Aruch, and it is a practice of Ashkenazic Jews as well. He says that this is the recommended. It's not recommended. It's recommended for Shulchan Aruch if you can't put both of them properly. That's why we buy the smaller ones. What about the Yaskil of D? The Yaskil of D, right? The Rav Ovadia Hodaya, right? Adaya. He comes and he's author of the Yaskil of D. He read the response of the Biyaomen, and he wrote a letter to the Rishon LeZion challenging the ruling. How could you say that a person can fulfill his obligation according to the poskim by wearing 2 sets of tefillin at one time? He says that this directly contradicts the teaching of the Rizal Kadosh and other Kabbalists who thought that it was imperative that you have to do both together. So the Rishon LeZion replied that if a person can obtain 2 tiny sets of tefillin and he knows how to position them both on his head and arm, then it is certainly best to wear 2 sets at one time, in difference to the ruling of the Rizal. Yeah? He says indifference, right? If his tefillin are too large to allow this, then you have to do one or another. Rabbi accepted this reply without comment, right? But sometime later, he made a public statement that people should not follow the issue of the ruling of the Rishon LeZion. Maran's response to the announcement is published in the Yalkut Yosef. So it comes out that he actually did say that if you're able to come and do 2 at a time, meaning you have small tefillin, you should do 2 at a time.